Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today I bring you part 2 of my 3 videos I have planned discussing the major Year 2 content leak we had a few weeks back for The Division 2. I'll say this now before I go any further, this video will contain spoilers pertaining to that and the future of the game, so if you don't want that stuff spoiled, then you should probably click off. Part 1 of this miniseries covered everything that leak told us about Project Skyscraper, which is a confirmed by Massive as an in-development replayable PvE game mode, and I added my own thoughts and speculations about what we could see from that, when we might see it, and what it could mean for the future, and all of that. If you want to go and watch that video first, I'll leave a card for it up on screen now, and leave a link in the description too, along with a link to the original video I did covering everything that leak contained. But today, we're going to hone in on part of the leak that focused on the narrative progression coming to the game in Year 2, that being from the upcoming seasons. Specifically, how Season 4, the furthest one out, leaves on a pretty major cliffhanger. I feel that combined with a lot of the other info in and outside of the game, it hints towards some pretty major things coming. So, strap in and let's get started. So what exactly is the big cliffhanger that Season 4 brings? In case you forgot or haven't heard about the leaks thus far, Season 4 prime manhunt target is Faye Lau. Her final manhunt mission is at Camp White Oak, where we get word that she's meeting up with the escaped President Ellis. So, we head to intercept, but just before we reach her and the President is where shit goes down. As the leak describes, we either watch or hear Faye kill the President, and then she swiftly radios all the Black Tusk forces to claim that we, the Division, have betrayed our country and killed the President. Regardless of him being a traitor, that's a pretty major complication. We've been seeing more and more characters within the Division world saying they distrust the Division, and it's been made pretty clear that our status nationally is on thin ice. So how do you think America is going to react to the news that we killed the President? I'll give you a hint, not well. So that's the cliffhanger. From the sounds of it, we don't actually kill Faye in the mission, she escapes, and we're now essentially enemies of the state. Not a great position to be in. So where does the story go from here? Well, thanks to hints dropped in the Warlords campaign, I've got quite the idea for that. I can't take sole responsibility for this since I've seen many people propose the same theory when discussing this topic, but I can say that I had this idea without reading anyone else's as soon as I read the leak. It just makes sense. You'll see what I mean. We're going rogue. Not by choice, but given that bombshell revelation, I believe the Division will be flagged rogue. Maybe it's the entire network, or perhaps just the DC agents who were linked to the op, but either way, us, the player, and our character will be involuntarily flagged rogue. That would be huge. People have always said that they've wanted the choice to be a rogue agent ever since the Division 1, and so if Massive really were to take the story down this path, that would be huge. Easily the most compelling story in the games thus far, if they could pull it off right. So what was that Warlords connection I was mentioning? Well, what's something that's core to the Division experience? Isaac. Our Watch's AI controls literally everything, from our HUD to our radar to our skills, so if we were to be flagged rogue, we'd therefore lose access to Isaac. How would that work? Well, if you recall back to Keener's final main mission on Liberty Island, the devs actually planted the seed of this plot thread right under our feet. When we take Keener down and claim his watch, we're introduced to Anna, the AI that the rogues use to control their navigation, skills, etc. We take Keener's watch from that mission, and that's what's unlocked and gave us access to these shade levels. So even if we don't actually use her, Anna is already a tool we have on our belt. So if we were to be flagged rogue and suddenly lose connection and access to Isaac, we could just boot Anna right up and be ready to go. I truly think them including that short cameo of her in the final cutscene was noteworthy, and I'm fairly confident that this is where the story is leading. We're hopefully, but finally going to be able to play as the rogues. Even if the goal is to clear our name and return to the SHD, this could be an epic campaign, being hunted by the remaining SHD agents, possibly having to collude with the true rogue agents or enemy factions, all while trying to restore our status and take down the real threat in Faye. Now that's a story and a journey that I want to take. So that's where I think the story is headed. That's pretty agreeable, but that brings us to an even bigger question in my mind, and one that I've been on the fence about ever since seeing this leak, honestly. What form is this potential rogue storyline going to take? This has been a big debate within the community as well. There's two big options here. Will this storyline be played out in another expansion for the Division 2 similar to Warlords, or will this be the Division 3? I'll tell you right now, I honestly don't have a solid answer. I have my preference and I have evidence as to why both sides could be true, but I honestly don't know for certain. No one does. But let's discuss why it could be each. Let's take the expansion route first. What's the evidence that this rogue storyline could be the central plot for another Division 2 expansion? Well, timing would be my primary answer. March is when all of the Division's major content drops, that being both of the two games and now Warlords. Season 4, assuming they stay on schedule and stick to 3-month seasons, would end right around the beginning of March. It's very plausible in my mind that they could have this major cliffhanger from the end of Season 4 and then immediately announce the next expansion dealing with the fallout of these events coming within 3 weeks or a month, just like with how the Warlords announcement timeline went. Another reason I'll give is how much investment they've put into the Division 2 by now, and I know the same could be said for the Division 1 technically, but the devs have put an immense amount of work into revision after revision of some pretty central pieces to the game, most notably the Dark Zones, the PvE endgame, and gear with Gear 2.0. Now, does that necessarily indicate an intention to keep the Division 2 around long term? No. It could also be further quote-unquote testing for a potential Division 3. Similar to how Rogue 2.0 in the Division 1's DZ was a big test for the Division 2, but it is something that I wanted to mention. Now let's talk Division 3. It's been pretty heavily discussed in the community what people would like to see from a Division 3, or if they even want it at all. There's people on both sides of this argument, but personally, I would much rather we see a Division 3 with this as its central campaign than continued support on the Division 2. Now, the reasoning why that is and what that could entail is a whole nother topic, and that is going to be the subject of the third video in this miniseries, what a Division 3 could realistically look like, so stay tuned for that. But the topic here is, could it happen? And I say yes, it definitely could. One of the main reasons is what's been going on behind the scenes. Now, if you play Division 1, you may remember that come the end of Year 1, a lot of the core cast of Massive that we were used to seeing kind of faded out into the background, and Red Storm came in to carry Year 2. Now, we couldn't have known for sure then, but they were working on the Division 2, and what's been happening lately behind the scenes, a lot of key players in the dev world have been disappearing. It was finally made public that Red Storm departed the Division 2 project, which is a huge deal. Terry, who's the creative director over there, and the studio have been attached to the Division franchise since before the first game launched. So that would be a pretty sudden transition for them to move to another franchise. Not impossible, but odd for sure. Similarly, Frederick Thylander, who is one of the more higher-ranking developers at Massive in charge of a wide spectrum of Div 2 things, recently announced that he was working on other things, off the project. Again, odd. And a third one that people may be less aware of is that if you go to look at the credits for Warlords of New York, Matthias Carlson's name is mysteriously absent. Now, if you don't know who that is, Matthias is the game director, the primary guy of both Division 2 and 1. He was there doing interviews way back in 2013 and 14, and he's not in the Warlords credits. The associate game director was, and that's Drew, who we've seen many times on State of the Game, but not the core leader of the game for 6 or 7 years. In my mind, it's entirely possible that we're seeing these key players and teams slowly being pulled out of rotation from Division 2 to work on a third entry, something to ponder over for sure. And I think an additional benefit to doing a Division 3 that some may not consider is that Ubisoft would be able to take full advantage of the next generation consoles. That's pretty major. Graphics aside, the primary benefit would be because the new SSDs of the consoles could load and render things much faster, allowing the devs to really push what Division 3 contains and strives to do. Division 2 had to be built with the limitations to run on 7-year-old machines by now, so imagine what a new game could do that's built from scratch to match the present standards. Exciting stuff when you think about it. Now, there's one gaping issue with the idea that this cliffhanger could lead to a Division 3, and that's that if Season 4 ends in March 2021, which there's no reason why it wouldn't, then we'd be waiting an entire year before Division 3 launches, assuming they stick to the 3-year gap that they did between 1 and 2. There's no way it's coming out before then, but it could possibly take longer if they took their time with it. Is that something they do? I don't know. It'd be kind of weird to be called out as traitors for killing the president and then just walk back into the White House again like nothing happened and keep playing for a year until Division 3 launches. Again, another factor to consider. Now, I'm sure someone is going to comment that they should follow in Destiny's shoes and go for the full-fledged support for the Division 2 if you didn't see Bungie recently announce expansions for Destiny 2 up to 3 years from now. And while I'm all in for continued evolution of one game over time, I just don't think Div 2 is the one to do it for. I'll get into some of my reasoning for that in the upcoming Division 3 video, but yeah, personally I just hope that's not their plan. Also, unlike Destiny and Bungie, Division and Massive are owned by Ubisoft, and corporations tend to always like one thing: money. It was recently announced that both Division 1 and 2 have sold 10 million copies each, which in other terms means they were both very successful. Ubisoft knows that a new game sells better than expansion to a current one at half the price. Just another thing to keep in mind. Alright guys, well I think that's going to do it for the topic of what direction I think Season 4 teased the story to head in and what form that might come in, either another expansion for Div 2 or a potential Division 3. Again, the third video in this series will fully dive into what a realistic Division 3 could look like, so stay tuned for that. Thank you very much for watching until the end. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe with notifications on so that you can be updated every time I upload. Definitely head down to the comments and let me know your thoughts. Would you be down for a Rogue Agent campaign storyline, and if so, in what context? Even if you'd rather see a different story, would you rather we get an expansion 2 or a Division 3? I'm very curious to see people's thoughts and opinions here. But for now, have a great day everyone, stay safe, and until the next one guys, RogueGold out.